Hi, I'm Laura Gibson-Cuddy and welcome to my channel, where every week we find the art in life. Sorry for the long hiatus, guys. I've been working hard on my newest novel. More on that book on the weeks to come. Today we're going to tackle the book that I just recently finished in my book club, Truman Capote's In Cold Blood. It's a beautiful mix of novel and nonfiction writing. Capote really broke all boundaries when he wrote this book, and he did a really good job in advertising it, really selling himself. I wonder if it's as good as everyone says it is. So let's start with the synopsis. On November 15th, 1959, in the small town of Holcomb, Kansas, 4 members of the Clutter family were savagely murdered by blast from a shotgun held a few inches from their faces. There was no apparent motive for the crime, and there were almost no clues. As Truman Capote reconstructs the murder and the investigation that led to the capture, trial, and execution of the killers, he generates both mesmerizing suspense and astonishing empathy. In Cold Blood is a work that transcends its moment, yielding poignant insights into the nature of American violence. High praise, right? So how come in my small book club, only 2 of us actually finished it? I want to dissect why that is. How come there is such a divide in this book? Now, there are those that say this was a masterpiece. This transcended years in the writing world, the author realm. We created a whole new genre of books where it's in the style of a novel, but it's nonfiction. Everything is fact, right? Or maybe not. I think it's more along the lines of inspired by a true story. There are actually a lot of people, if you go on YouTube and you can actually find, I found the judge, his name escapes me right now, I'm horrible with names. The judge that tried the 2 killers, Perry and Dick, said that the whole story Capote wrote is riddled with inaccuracies, and Capote even had the wrong hero in the story. But then the judge actually ends with saying he never actually read the book. He just wanted hearsay, which to me is a huge pet peeve. I hate when people say, oh, that movie is trash, oh, that book is trash, oh, that person is trash, when they never actually watched, read, or even met the person, movie, book in question. So I had to read this for myself. Well, of course, it was also for the book club, but why is there such a divide in this book? One of my good friends loathed this book. She couldn't even finish it. This is a book that transcends time, right? Well, Capote does get lost in a lot of the facts. There are pages on pages where he just goes deep in Perry Smith, the one killer's story, or he goes pages and pages in descriptions and maybe some facts that could have been left out. He gets lost in the intricacies of the story. And to some, that could be a little bit mundane. I do love descriptions. I'm a huge Tolkien, Austen. You know I'm an Austen fan if you've been watching my channel. I love that old style. This, to me, harkens back to that old style of novel writing where they really dive into descriptions. However, you don't want to dive into descriptions that are meaningless to the story. You can, like Tolkien has pages of describing Bilbo Baggins' hobbit hole, and you get a sense of then who Bilbo Baggins is from the description of his house. You don't necessarily need pages and pages of an inmate Perry Smith and Dick had with them in death row and is meaningless to the story. I don't really see the need to dive into these characters that have no relevance to the story themselves. So in that way, Capote doesn't fully embrace that idea. I really think that some people miss the real theme here, and he was actually being very sympathetic to the killers. And he wanted to show that these killers had a mindset not unlike some other killers that were on death row. So I see where he was going with it, but it wasn't needed in the story. I also think the first half did drag quite a bit. It didn't really captivate my attention as much as the second half did. I was compelled to find out exactly what happened in the Clutter house, because he doesn't give the specifics of the murder until the climax of the story, which that was very nice to have that reveal at the end. But if you are knowing of the story, it's not that much of a reveal because you know the story. He had to rely on some ignorance of the reader. And in that sense, I had an advantage. I was an ignorant reader. I had no idea of the details of this murder. I had never seen Capote before. I never saw the movie In Cold Blood before. I was going in ignorant in reading this book, and I actually recommend doing that. I think that was why I loved this book. I actually really did. Even though it might not seem like it how I'm talking, because there are definitely flaws in this book. I don't give this an A+. I would probably give this book a B+. It was compelling to read, especially since I didn't know the specifics. And I liked the sense of mystery because we don't know whether Perry was telling the truth. We don't know if Perry was trying to hide the facts from Dick's parents. I personally use this as a learning opportunity. As a mystery and thriller writer, I love dissecting the human mind, why we do the things we do. And in that sense, I loved this book for that. I really believe Capote got a sense of who Perry Smith was, why he was probably doing the things he was doing. He really dived in to that particular killer's backstory. I do wish he had dived into Dick's backstory a little bit more. He really focused on the one killer over the other. Perry Stone really was the anti-hero in this story. Even though people are saying it was the KBI agent that was the main character, I don't see it. I really believe Perry Smith was the true hero of this story. Anti-hero, antagonist. He was the main character in this story. And I really did get a sense of who he was. I sympathize with him. I see that Capote definitely sympathized with him. If you watch the movie Capote, which I did about halfway through this book. I'm a slow reader, so it took me about 2 weeks to read this book, which is actually really fast for me. Sometimes I'm months into a book, but I was compelled because I really wanted to finish by the time my book club met. So about halfway in, I watched the movie Capote, and I highly, highly recommend that movie. In fact, I actually would recommend it about when I did, about halfway in. That way you have a sense of the mystery of the book going in, and then if you watch the movie, you can see the background of how Capote wrote this book, how Harper Lee, who's the author of To Kill a Mockingbird, I love Harper Lee. I had no idea she was the note taker all along the way. She helped Capote. She was his right-hand woman the whole time in writing this book, and it gave me more of a sense of awe in how this book was written, because my goodness, To Kill a Mockingbird, you know, she had written To Kill a Mockingbird prior to this, but I can't help but wonder if her note-taking inspired the next books in her series. Maybe in editing of To Kill a Mockingbird, she got inspired by the events of the Clutter family and the killings. I wonder. I did think that his writing was brilliant. It was very imaginative, but it really was very similar, I believe, to a historical film where they say based on a true story. you can tell he is most likely fudging some of the facts, embellishing a little bit. And he does admit in an interview that the last scene in the book where Dewey is over the grave and he's reminiscing of stuff, like that was completely fiction. So you do wonder what else is fiction. I wonder even in nonfiction books how much is embellished. We don't know everything that happens behind closed doors. So whenever something is in detail, when you have dialogue going on, you know, you're gonna have a word here, sentence here, a whole paragraph here, where might not have happened. So if you go in realizing some of these facts might be embellished or false altogether, you can give a little bit more of a forgiveness to the author because he had to make this story compelling. I do see this as a very artsy book. The descriptions, the detail. In analyzing the cover, I don't like this cover with this book. I feel like the aqua blue is too happy of a color for this book. I feel like some more drab colors, more of a slow burn aspect. So I would actually think of burgundies would be great, more autumn colors, more of a dreariness. It's just, it needs to be colder, more of a wintry color. Wintry fall colors would do well with this book. This is an excellent book to be reading in October, Halloween time. It has some spooky elements, but it's not horror, it's not scary. I wouldn't say that Life got it right with a masterpiece, a spellbinding work. I didn't find it spellbinding. I found it very intriguing, very interesting. It was compelling in the sense of you wanted to know their life stories. But I wouldn't say it was intensely exciting. The book chills the blood and exercises the intelligence, harrowing. I do think it was intelligent. I do think it was harrowing. It doesn't chill the blood, but it does give you a little bit of a sense of who our society does shape and create the killers around us, and do have a choice of what we do with it. For instance, Perry Smith had siblings where a couple of them killed themselves. Well, one of them killed themselves. The other was possibly an accident where they died. And his sister was the only sane one in the bunch. I really want to know what happened to Perry Smith's sister. Did she remain normal? Now I'm actually really wanting to research this. So if you know what happened to Perry Smith's sister, please let me know in the comments. I'm really curious now because I don't know why I didn't think about looking that up before. Is she a grandmother now? Is she someone that actually had a normal life after all this? Because she had a couple of kids and seemed to be happily married, even though she was afraid for her life while her brother was alive. But all in all, I really did enjoy the book. I was intrigued by the whole story. You know, fact is stranger than fiction a lot of times. And I highly recommend it to anyone that just loves mystery thrillers, any mystery thriller writer who wants to explore the mind of a killer a little bit more in depth. Or if you just want to understand what goes into someone's mind to make them do the things they do, even if it's not just killing, why the events in our lives shape us into who we are. So I recommend the book. I would say it's definitely an artsy take on the killer. So I hope you have an excellent week, and I'll see you next time where we discover the art in life.